Hey there guys, and welcome to section 6 of this course, where we're going to be going into one of the really coolest parts about Monday.com, the automations. So what I want to do in this section is I'm going to explain typically what we use automation for, and I'm going to show you how to build an automation using the custom automation, and then I'm also going to show you a couple of the standard recipes that Monday.com has given us to work with. Right, so with that, we're just going to jump in to the slide that I've designed quickly, and I'm just going to take you through that. So first off, what we typically use automations for is to populate, for instance, we want to populate information without us having to assign a date or put in a date. We want to populate that. We also typically want to notify individuals. Let's say it hits a certain status and we want to notify someone saying, hi there, it's in the status. Next, we want to also update. Maybe what we want to do is we want to change a status. So it could be this is in progress to completed, and we want to update that. Next is that typically automations have the ability to trigger other workflows that are connected to certain apps. So this kind of ties in with the integration side, but typically what could happen is that we could completely trigger another workflow in a different app. So that's also one of the things that we can use automations for. The next is that we would typically use automations to create items. Now you can either create an item in a board or you can create it in another board. And then that leads us to connecting the items. So for instance, with my project board, let's say I wanted to create an item from the project, and when an item is created in my task board, I wanted to automatically connect to the project that it is associated with. So we typically can use automation for that too. And then lastly is that you possibly want to use automations to move, to archive, to delete. So that's also a couple of things that you would typically use automations for. Right, now that we see that, what we want to do is we want to go into how to do the automations. So let's go over here to this little robot. Okay, so in the robot, you can see that we've got the automation center, and you can see that we have got the board automations. So I'm going to show you how to create a custom automation. So it's very typical. If you think about the logic, it's like when this happens, do this. When this happens, and only if this, then do this. So we're going to say, let's go back to our board and let's see what automation can we create. Now, an example over here maybe would be the hourly rate. Now, typically I would have to put in the hourly rate for each person. Okay, I'd have to put in an hourly rate for Darren and then for Noam, and every time we create that, I'd have to put it in. Maybe that's something that we could populate. So let us say we're going to go in and add new automation, and we're going to say when person is assigned, okay, and this is where that logic comes in, and only if person is assigned to Darren, okay, then what we want to do is we can go set number hourly rate to 500. Okay, create custom automation. Now, one of the things that I want you to be very careful of when you're setting up these automations is you have to really understand the action. We're saying when an item is assigned, right? But what happens if someone fills out our form? So for instance, let's just fill out this task name example. We go Darren, part 2, put in the date, project 1, and task. Let's see, we've got Darren, and it hasn't put in the hourly rate. The reason why is because the language is very important. It said if it's assigned to Darren. Now typically it wasn't assigned to Darren because it was created. If you take, let's take Noam out of here, right? And I'm going to delete that too. If we assign Darren, now what will happen is that the hourly rate column will fill because we were assigned. So we have to change our automation a bit. What we maybe want to do is we want to say when item is created, and only if person is Darren, then we can set number to 500. All right, so now let's see if this works. So if I duplicate this item, we've duplicated the item was created, and now what will happen is it will fill with 500. So be very careful with the way that you do the language. Okay, it's very important. So as you can see, it's really easy to add those automations. Just go, there's so many options that you can really go through. You can, when data arrives, then move item to group, to notify, create update, assign team, and all of this lovely stuff. There's so much that you can actually do with this. So that's how you can create the custom automations. Next, you can also see we've got a couple of automations over here that are pretty much stock standard with Monday.com. So you can easily click on this and then just update this accordingly. And you can easily kind of use them as a template, if that makes sense. Right. And then I guess one of the things that I also want to show you that you can do. So let's just go to our basic automations. You can also save your automations as templates. So I can say save as template, and I'll just say assign rate, create the template. And now what I can do is if I go into my automation center, I see custom. I will then see my assign rate when an item is created and only if person is. This way I can now do one for person is Ian, set number hourly rate to 650, and I can do the same with no. And that is pretty much really what you need to know about automations.